PALS. So PALS stands for Premeds Achieving Long-Term Success. And like we mentioned before, this program is really designed in order to allow you to have the resources that you need and the connections that you need to make it to and through pre-med and get to the med school area. So because there's not too many people on the Zoom, I was wondering if everybody could actually go around and state like where they are in their journey to medicine. So if we could start with Mercy because your camera's on.
Hey guys, my name is Mercy. I am a junior at St. Louis University, and I am a public health major on the pre-med track.
Like, nice to see you, Mercy. Sarah.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sarah. I'm a parent. I'm here because my son wants to go that route. So I would like to hear so that we can guide him in the right direction. He wasn't able to join the meeting tonight because he had some other commitment, but I will share the recording with him. And thank you guys for what you're doing.
Thank you so much for being here, Miss Sarah. We appreciate it. Um, Beatrice?
Yeah, my name is Betty, but go with Beatrice official. Um, my daughter wants to do med, so I just joined to listen and get some information. And thank you so much, guys, for doing this because we don't know a lot of things, and this is gonna really help us a lot. God bless you all for doing this.
Thank you so much, Miss Beatrice. Kayla? Maybe she's not here right now. Winnie?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Winnie Kemboy. I'm here as a parent. I just came to listen in. My daughter has mentioned that she would like to do medicine, though she's not decided actually. She's in seventh grade and she's trying to explore different career paths. So I just want to listen in and probably she can listen to the recording later.
Thank you, Miss Winnie. And Stella?
Hello, my name is Stella. I am a pre-med major and I am in my sophomore year of college.
Nice to meet you, Stella.
Nice to meet you as well.
Okay, so we'll get started. So we have parents here, and I love to have parents here because then you're able to guide your kids better. And we also have some students who are already on the pre-med journey. So we'll do a general overview of what it means to be a pre-medical student and what that journey kind of looks like. And then from there, we will have Cass here and Dr. Okamati here as well to talk about their experiences. So the outline goes, what is V4A PALS? So we'll talk about that. What classes do you actually need to take as a pre-med? Thinking about extracurriculars, the pre-med timeline, and then that Q&A. Okay, so the purpose of PALS. So we're designed to encourage students to stay on track in becoming medical doctors by conducting important sessions related to the pre-med process and providing a listening ear for when times get tough to give advice over how to overcome. Because we know that this journey is a long journey, it's an arduous journey, and it's challenging, but it's not impossible. And so in order to encourage students and to keep them on the track, we're here to provide advice and experiences. So our mission is to inspire young adults with immigrant backgrounds to remain steadfast on the pre-medical pathway by providing resources, guidance, and encouragement throughout their journey to medicine in order to create more culturally competent physicians. So let's meet our team. So I already introduced myself. My name is Mary. I'm originally from Minnesota. I'm Nigerian. I went to Northwestern and did a bachelor's there, as well as a master's in public health, and now I'm a med student at SLUSOM. Some other mentors that we have on our team, Shike Wanzapu, he's from DC, also Nigerian, had a degree from Penn and is a third-year medical student. Yep. Maureen Shockey, also a third-year medical student. She's from Missouri, and she went to SLU for undergrad to get a major in biology and sociology. Then Cass already introduced herself. She has a BA in Public Health and Biological Sciences from Rutgers, as well as a master's in Physiology and Biophysics from Georgetown. So if you want additional degrees, you also know who to ask with that. And then Dr. Emmanuel Okamadi, he will hop on the call shortly and introduce himself, but he's from Minnesota. He's my older brother, Nigerian. He went to the University of Minnesota Twin Cities for undergrad with a bachelor's in neuroscience and a minor in chemistry, continued there for medical school, and now he is a rising fourth year neurology resident at Northwestern University in Chicago, and he will be their chief resident going into this year. He has a lot of experience in mentoring pre-medical students as well, and is willing to take on a lot of mentees. So that's him. So how do we do this whole pre-med thing? What is the pre-med thing? So what does it mean to be pre-med? First, we have to talk about what it doesn't mean, right? The first thing is that you don't have to be a biology major to be pre-med. I majored in cognitive science. We saw majors in health sciences. I know people who majored in criminal justice and still became pre-med. That's not the actual requirement to be pre-med. So when you're picking your major, pick something that you're interested in, but also make sure that you're able to take pre-medical classes. So that's how you can ensure that you take all the required pre-med classes. You do need to maintain a good GPA, and a good GPA is going to be above like a 3.6 to be a competitive medical student. You have to have some type of clinical exposure and or research exposure during your college career. You need to be a good person and demonstrate the qualities of a leader. And you do need to look ahead and plan. So when we're talking about being a good person and demonstrating the qualities of a leader, that's really going to be in your extracurricular activities. It's going to be in the letters of recommendation that you have faculty write for you. And to do all of those things, you need to be able to look ahead and plan. So what classes do I need to take? So when we're talking about the pre-med requirements, we're talking about a year of general chemistry with a lab, a year of organic chemistry with lab, a year of biology, physics, maths, English, psychology, and sociology. When you have all of those classes, you can do the pre-med thing. And so we're going to pause very quickly because Dr. Okamadi is actually on the call and needs to leave shortly. So he will just introduce himself very quickly before he goes.
Hi, Mary. What do you all want in an introduction?
Just since you're only going to be on shortly, can you just introduce yourself, how you got to medicine, any advice that you would have for people on the medicine track?
Sure.
Yeah, and what you currently do.
Sure. So my name is Emmanuel. I'm a third year neurology resident at Northwestern in Chicago. I'm Mary's brother. Let's see. Got to medicine. I mean, I think I always had an interest in like the STEM fields and interest in just kind of like the human body, the anatomy, how it works, but also just like, seeing other loved ones with various conditions and wondering kind of like how that happens, what can we do to fix it, what can we do to treat things, kind of led me onto the field of medicine. First generation in medicine, so I wouldn't say that I had any people to look up to, but like, things that I did when I was in like high school and college, we're just trying to pursue and like find people who were on the same path that I was and trying to like, learn from them as best as I could. And fortunately, it worked out for me. Advice that I would have for like, pre-medical people aspiring to go to medical school. One, be persistent. But two, also stay true to yourself. I would say, medical school is hard. You can see all the requirements up there. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that all of this is like easy and a cakewalk, but it's all doable and you guys can all do it with persistence. But at the same time, stay true to yourself. One of the things that I think has made me a really good doctor and things that have been talked about a lot when I was interviewing for medical school residency are the things that made me outside of medicine. So like, hobbies that I've had, interests that I am interested in outside of medicine. It doesn't have to be, shadowing and scribing and all these things. You can, continue to do figure skating or continue to coach basketball or, XYZ. Just continue to do those things that make you you. And if you have a reason for doing it, continue doing it. Yeah, does that answer everything? Probably.
Yes. Thank you so
Cool.
much for hopping on.
Yeah. If you guys have any questions, Mary can share my email in the chat. I'd be happy to talk to any of you guys more. But sorry I have to be so brief.
We appreciate you making the time for us, and I will drop his email in the chat at the end of the meeting. So if you do have any questions, He is currently a neurology resident at Northwestern. I'm about to be done with that too. All right, thank you. So we talk about the med school, the pre-med requirements. So with these pre-med requirements, those are the classes that you have to take. And like Dr. Okamati mentioned, you can also do things during this time that's going to make you a more well-rounded applicant, which means doing things or taking classes that are interesting to you. For example, I was still able to take a class on the Bible as literature. And I took my Spanish classes, I took my cognitive science classes, and that was a good balance for me within this pre-med journey. So I didn't feel like I was just all science all the time. And then we get into extracurriculars. So things that show leadership, executive board positions in your groups, mentoring, teaching, volunteering. Those are all ways that you can demonstrate your leadership capabilities. You don't even have to necessarily be the number one leader or the president of the organization to still demonstrate qualities of a good leader. So clinical experience that people have done in the past, EMT, certified nursing assistant, volunteering at a hospital, being a certified phlebotomist, clinical research. When we're talking about clinical experience, you really want to focus on patient interactions and patient care because doctors want to be able to see that you actually care about the patient aspect of being a doctor, not just the title of being a doctor or the prestige of being a doctor. And the last thing is research experience. Research can show leadership qualities, but it also shows that you can find a project, find something of interest to you, look into it, and see it through. Because at the end of the day, as doctors, as people, we are continuously learning, and you need to be able to demonstrate those skills of somebody who is interested in learning. And so that's where the research experience really helps with your application. And then the big thing that everybody stresses about, that MCAT. The biggest thing that we have to say about that MCAT is you need to take it when you are ready to take it, right? The average score on the MCAT is a 506, and the average matriculating score is a 511. So you want to be able to get that average, around the average matriculating score or higher, so that you can be a highly competitive applicant. And the other thing is that you don't want to take the MCAT multiple times because the schools can see every attempt of your MCAT that you take, right? You want to sit there, take it once and be done. So don't force it. If you're seeing your scores aren't where they need to be, don't take the test yet. Take some time off, study harder, and get that test done when you're ready and where you're at the score that you need to be. And then that's where we also get into the idea of gap years, right? Right now, it's majority of students that are matriculating into medical school have taken at least 1 year off after college before going to medical school. I took 2 years off. And this is really because during undergrad, sometimes it's not enough time to fit in all of those different things that you need to make yourself look like a competitive applicant and study for this MCAT. So a lot of times what people are doing is they complete college, they get a job, or they travel, or they take the year to study and prepare their application. And that has also helped people get into medical school. So with that, those are all the big things that we wanted to talk about regarding the med school journey. What questions do you currently have? And if you don't have any, I will talk about how I got to medicine, and then I'll have Cass talk about how she got to medicine. And if that inspires any questions, we can go there as well. Oh. Can you not hear me? Okay, you can. Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Well, I will talk about how I got into medicine. So my family was very much doctor, lawyer, engineer, as most Nigerian immigrant households are. And as a young kid, my mom will always tell you that I had always had an interest in helping people and making sure that people felt better and feel well. So from a young age, apparently, I had told her that I wanted to be a doctor. I don't remember this, but she held me to it, right? And so when I got to high school, I was really interested in science. So I took like the college science courses, but I was also interested in education and I was also interested in law and policy. So I got to college, took my first chemistry class, decided that I could no longer be a biology major because that chemistry class was hard. It was very difficult, but I still wanted to go into medicine. Lucky for me, I had my older brother there to talk to and be like, hey, Emmanuel, this is what I want to do with my life. Um, how do I get there? And he's the first one who told me, you don't have to be a biology major to get into medicine. And from there, I talked to some advisors, found cognitive science, which is like the study of how people make decisions. It combines psychology, neurology, artificial intelligence, even linguistics, the way that people speak, to kind of understand how people make their decisions. And I loved it. So at that point, I decided to be a cognitive science major on the pre-med track. So as I'm on the pre-med track and I'm doing my classes, I sat there and I was like, there's no way I could do all of this and study for my MCAT. It became overwhelming. And so I talked to my brother again. And he told me, he said, you don't have to force this all the way through. Take your time. Your journey is your journey and your race is your race. Nobody else is running it but you. So I decided, I was like, okay, I'm really interested in this public health aspect. And so I took a year after college to get my master's in public health and study for my MCAT at the same time. After that, I worked for a year in an organization in Chicago. And during that working year, I applied for medical school. So currently, I am a rising fourth year at SLU, and I help with this program as well as several other programs. And I'm going to be applying into family medicine. So your general practitioner doctor is the goal that I want. But that is my journey. Cass, do you want to share your journey? Oh, you're still muted.
Sorry about that. But I was saying, like you, I feel like it's hard to kind of think about my journey to medicine because I feel like I stated that I wanted to do something in the healthcare field when I was pretty young. And again, being African, Nigerian, my parents heard that, they clung to it and they ran with it. So I feel like that seed in me was kind of always watered from a pretty young age. Um, so kind of having that in mind, it made some of my decisions just more easy when it came to applying to colleges. I knew the major I wanted to do pretty early on, and then I knew what I wanted to do after that, being going to med school. Like Mary, I took gap years. For me, it just came at a time when I guess I was still unburdened by how much money the journey could cost, and I really just loved kind of like the pursuit of knowledge genuinely. So I chose to do a master's degree. Looking back, gap years aren't for everyone, but I'm extremely happy that I did. I think there's a certain level of maturity, certain level of sacrifice that was kind of instilled in me during that time that made it possible for me to be a successful medical student. And so, yeah, from there, again, naturally, I knew my next step after my master's degree would be medical school. And so here I am.
How did you stay motivated throughout the journey and even throughout med school?
Like I said, I'm Nigerian. There's no other choice. It's like trial by fire. But in all seriousness, I think when something, my mom always said, like, where passion goes, everything else follows. So I think it was just at every step of the way, checking in with myself and just, again, if you don't want to do this, you don't have to do this. But if you want to do this, I think just touching base with yourself at different steps and making sure you're kind of reiterating your why, being why am I doing this? Who is this for? What is this for? What is this fulfilling in me? For me, I believe in God, so I kind of believe, my life, I was called to do this in many ways. And so just kind of keeping in line with his plan for me, that was enough to motivate me.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And like Emmanuel also talked about staying true to yourself and how important that is throughout this journey. And I know you talked about the why. That why medicine question you're going to be asked so many times throughout this journey. And it's very important that you understand why you're even doing this because when you're in med school and you're going through all these tests and you're wondering, why am I here? You can look back at what you wrote and be like, oh, that was my motivation. That was my journey. Yeah.
I got a question probably. It's can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and probably both of you has mentioned about your background as immigrants, kids, and many times we find that that's it comes a lot of time. You have to be a doctor, medicine, I mean, doctor, engineer, lawyer, I think pilot. Um, and many times we feel like some students, parents can see the potential of the students and they will really push them to be in it. But sometimes students may be able to back up and say, I don't want to be told what to do.
Mhm.
Um, so what can you tell students who feel like, yes, I don't want to be controlled, but I think also I want to follow my own path. And because sometimes you may find students who may be able to say, yeah, I want to follow my own path, but I don't want to be told. Now I hear you, most of them saying, yes, there was that kind of push from the parents, which eventually had helped me to figure out what I wanted to do in college. I mean, to do to pursue a career in medicine. I want to hear from you, your feedback on that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think when you bring that up, it makes me think about when I decided to do my master's program and I
Mm,
finally told my mom. My mother was not happy about that. She wanted me to go undergrad straight into med school, and that was it. That was all, right? And she was very upset and she was crying, and it was my older brother who was actually like trying to advocate for me, like, no, like this is okay. I think at the end of the day, you have to remember that while it is important to honor your parents, it's also important to be that it's important to know that you're the one taking this journey, right?
mm,
And at the end of the day, you need to do something that's going to fulfill you. If you enter medicine and it's strictly for your parents, you will burn out so quickly, right? So it's about being honest with yourself and being honest with your parents. Yeah, they might be a little upset or they might be a little disappointed, but at the end of the day, they want your success and they want your happiness. So if you can find a way to be successful and be happy and tell your parents that, they'll be okay with it at the end of the day.
mm-hmm.
Cass, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, for me, I would say a couple things. Definitely, I have parents who, again, they never pushed anything on me, but I feel like once I said medicine, that's kind of all they wanted to see for me. Um, and so with that, I feel like I did kind of rebel, I guess, at times. Like I explored other careers. At one point, I told them I was going to be an interior designer. Um, but for whatever reason, I always kept coming back to medicine. And so I just feel like when a person has an aptitude to do something, when they were kind of called to do something and who they are is compatible with doing something, they'll be brought back to that thing, no matter how hard they try to fight. Because I tried for a very long time. I think I took 3 gap years, seeing other career fields, and nothing fulfilled me like the idea of pursuing this career. And so I think even if your child might fear or face pressures from you, if it's truly on their heart to do, I think naturally they'll kind of gravitate towards it as well.
I love that. So the other question that I wanted to ask, and I think maybe we may want to give us other opportunity. You can also ask the question to the chat, or you can raise your hand. But I wanted to ask this question about the long it takes to go to medical school and the cost for you to finish, because that's always comes a lot with the students say it's taking long for me to go to college. It's going to be very costly for me to do that, the student loan and all those kind of stuff. And I'm happy when we had a student who was speaking to our students over the Saturday, on Saturday, and she actually international student that she says that yes, I've been to college and got all the scholarships, and I'm gonna finish with no student debt. But how do you answer that question? The period, the time it takes, and the cost. Is it
Yeah.
worth?
So time it takes depends on the path that you take. So you're going to need 4 years of an undergraduate degree to apply to medical school. So that's 4 years. And then medical school itself is another 4 years minimum. Some students take longer to do it based off of testing or based off of things that might happen. But most schools allow for a maximum of 6 years to complete medical school. In terms of the cost of medical school, it depends on the school that you go to. And this is why I say that it's good to have a competitive MCAT score um, and apply to several schools. If you apply to several schools and one school gives you a scholarship opportunity, you can try and negotiate more scholarship at a different school. For me, my medical school is expensive and I pay for it through loans. Now, the other aspect of this is that when you graduate, you can work for 10 years at any government affiliated hospital, which is most hospitals. And then after that point, they will forgive all of your student loans if you pay the bare minimum for 10 years. So that's the plan that I'm going for after graduating. Um, I also received a scholarship while in school to help pay for some of my tuition as well. So it can be a very costly experience, especially if you don't have scholarships, and especially with the way that the government has switched up the loan requirements. That's very true. And I know a lot of schools are looking into different ways to financing students more. So, yeah. Cass, anything to add?
Yeah, the time, Mary's spot on with the time, and it might seem daunting, but I had a friend tell me once, the years are going to pass anyway, so why not spend it doing something that's for yourself, for your family?
Mm-hmm.
And then regarding the money, Mary's absolutely correct. There's a lot of scholarships available, and for different reasons. Sometimes if there's financial need, you can apply to a scholarship. Basically, you apply to the college first, then once you get your offer letter, like your acceptance letter, they usually have like rounds of scholarship applications. So again, it can be based off of how much your parents make, and that can qualify you for certain scholarships. A lot of like Ivy League schools and kind of like top tier universities are starting to offer free tuition in both college, and even some medical schools are now starting to offer free tuition. So that's something to kind of look out for. I had scholarships and they were merit based at the time. And so that is just really making sure that your high school GPA is competitive. And like Mary stated earlier, I would say anything competitive for college would be maybe 3.6, 3.7 and above. And when you do that, I think you're in a pretty good position to get at least some scholarship offers. And yes, medical school is terribly expensive in the States. Most people pay with loans. I think the average medical school student will have about $200,000 worth of loans. That's just in general. But the thing about it is, we approach it differently in our career path because as soon as you become a physician, you're usually making, a bit more than that, honestly, significantly more than that. So when your loans are under 200,000 or around 200,000, usually people don't fear that as much because again, you can pay that off within 5 to 10 years of just kind of being attentive to your finances. But if if you have a lot of loans, maybe 300,000, 400,000, 500,000, then other programs like what Mary described might be beneficial. And I think I saw a question in the chat regarding how many times you can take the MCAT. Mary, correct me if I'm wrong. I think it might be 7 currently.
Yeah, 7's the maximum.
7's the maximum. But again, like Mary was stating, every time you take it and get a score, schools you apply to can see the score. And so a question that you might face then during interviews would be, why did you take it so many times? Or what was happening that your score wasn't what you wanted, that you retook the test? And not only that, but the test is relatively expensive. I want to say it was around $300+ just to register, and then to prepare for the exam. A lot of people use test services, and those can run you several hundred to thousand, a couple thousand dollars. So it's not something you want to kind of embark on a bunch of times. But yeah.
Yeah, there is like an MCAT, double AAMC fee assistance program that pays for like one MCAT and allows you to apply to 20 schools for free. But again, you really want to take that MCAT as minimal amount of times as possible, because your schools can see it. And some schools average your MCAT scores, and then it's like, okay, well, I got a 490 and now I have a 515, but that 515 doesn't even look good anymore because of that 490. So it's really about making sure that you prepare for it. And then how did I prepare for it? I used a testing program service. It's a lot of content review and a lot of practice problems, really to try and make sure that you understand how the testers are asking the questions and you understand the amount of content that could be on that test. People typically take around 3 to 6 months to kind of study and prepare. And that's if they're doing like really, really good studying. Some people take like lighter class load and treat their MCAT studying as a class so that they can take it within the school year. Others take the gap year and then study as if it's a full-time job. So it's really based off of how much content review you need and how many practice problems you need to get the score that you want.
I just put a couple of links in the chat. It's to the double AMC. It's so 2A's MC. That's kind of like the main body in the United States that creates the MCAT that you apply to medical school through. So everything kind of goes through them. So that website can be a good resource just to get more information. But again, if you're a student or the parent of a student and the student's in high school, I think a more important thing to think about would be like college, kind of what they want to do for service work and things like that. The MCAT will kind of be built in over time. In some schools, I went to a school that had free prep. They built it in to, I guess, our cost of tuition. It was just a service available, but it was free prep. It lasted about 3 months. They gave you free practice exams, textbooks, whatever you need, private tutors, at no cost. So, and they paid for the exam as well.
Yeah, so like with the high school students, college students, or high school students, middle school students, we want to focus on that ACT, SAT score because correct me if I'm wrong, did med school ask for that ACT score?
Some schools do.
Schools
But
ask
not
for
every. Yeah, some schools want your SAT score and your ACT score, or one or the other.
Yeah, so making sure that that's a good score that they have, that they study well for that, and then they go to a good school with a good program would probably be your focus. And like Cass said, like extracurricular activities, things that build leadership skills, things that show that you care about the community that you're in. Those are things that med schools are also looking for, and even colleges too. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Mercy.
What's like a day in the life of a medical school student? Like, how are your classes and like how do you manage your day essentially?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the day in the life kind of differs based off of what year you're in med school. So during our first year, we had anatomy lab. And so we spent hours upon hours upon hours either in the anatomy lab or reviewing videos and things like that, trying to get all of that content in. When you get to your clerkship year, it switches. So instead of spending your entire day studying content, you're spending your entire day seeing patients and learning how to actually manage patients and manage conditions and things like that. And then your fourth year of medical school is honestly the chillest year because you have to apply to your residency programs. So I have a lot more free time now than I did last year for sure.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm coming off of a 3 month stint of not being in school pretty much. I mean, I did have to study for an exam, but I pretty much had like 3 months of downtime. Um, and then your fourth year has a lot more flexibility because you can choose electives that interest you. Right now, I'm doing a radiology elective, which is just looking at x-rays and CT scans and stuff like that. I'm not interested in radiology after this, so it's just something interesting I get to do. But you can kind of mix and match your fourth year. So again, like Mary was saying, overall, your first and second year will be required coursework. And usually it's just the foundation of medicine. So it's all the stuff you do in college, biostats, just kind of like supercharged to really hone in on health conditions. So what is a body supposed to be doing normally? And what happens when those processes go wrong is essentially what you learn. And then when we refer what we call clerkship year, all that is just so all the medical specialties, like the main ones, family medicine, internal medicine, pediatric medicine, surgery, you spend what, like, I don't know, 4 weeks, 4 weeks to 8 weeks rotating through. So just spending time on each of those different specialties. And then you get graded kind of, on your performance and things like that.
Thank you.
Hi, it's Penina. I just have a question or a couple questions. Here, let me see whether I can turn on my camera. Couple questions for the medical students. I have gone through medical school, but internationally, so I did not go through the dreaded MCAT. But a few things. What would you say regarding volunteering? Does it start in high school? Does it start elementary? What did you think was helpful during your interviews for college and also medical school? When would you start doing observership in the hospitals, in doctors' clinics, and also specific exam resources for MCAT? I think that would be helpful for the team. What you use, whether UWorld or any other resources that you had. And one last thing, were there any specific group of medical schools that one would be more appropriate or more receptive to giving scholarships to applicants and that are not as expensive as you went through your application? So I think those will be helpful for the team and those who are interested in going through medical school here in the US.
Yeah, sure. I guess I'll work backwards from your first question. So just regarding cost, like I stayed in state for college. I think that is usually the least expensive way to do things, just because in-state tuition is generally cheaper and you're more likely to get a scholarship. I don't actually know if that's like actually true, but it feels true anecdotally. I think you're more likely to get a scholarship from the institution that is in your own state. So that's one thing to do. And so I do think even like local community colleges sometimes, if finances are kind of tight, you can do a lot of your pre-med prerequisite classes there and then transfer over to a four-year institution and graduate from there and save money. I have some friends that went to medical school and they did things like that. Regarding the MCAT resources, me personally, UWorld wasn't a thing as big of a thing back then. So I use the Princeton Review in Kaplan, but I know now a lot of people use UWorld and they like that. I think that just depends on the person's learning style, kind of what their preferences are, because UWorld might be a little brief compared to like a Princeton Review, but Princeton Review might be too long-winded for somebody else. So I think it just depends on where they are at baseline. When it comes time to start studying for the MCAT, I would always suggest that somebody takes at least one practice test just to see where they are, what are their weak areas, and then that can also kind of inform the type of test prep that they're doing as well. Other than that, oh, your question regarding volunteering. Volunteering doesn't have to start in elementary school. I think those are the years really for the person to just kind of see what they naturally enjoy, see what they naturally gravitate towards. And then in high school, you want to do service. But again, it should really just be service that you happen to enjoy. And because it can be anything. For me, I used to cook like little snacks at a nursing home and give them to residents. I volunteered at animal shelters because that's what I like to do. So nothing that had anything to do with medicine. It doesn't need to be medical related. It may help, but it doesn't hurt you at all. And honestly, it may help to do something non-medical related because people find that interesting. And then what was the other question? Was it something about college and community service? Oh, shadowing. Regarding shadowing, usually that's also high school as well, or elementary school is far too soon. Um, Usually I would say late high school, but honestly, most people shadow in college. So their senior year, their junior year, you don't even really honestly need to worry about it until college, if that's what you choose to do.
Yeah, if it's something that you're interested in early and you have the opportunity to shadow somebody in high school and you want to go and do that, I don't think it hurts anything, especially because it lets you see what this career is actually like. But the shadowing that you're going to put on your med school application is going to be that of college, probably your shadowing, explaining the experiences that you saw and why it was impactful and things like that. Um, does that answer all of your questions, Penny?
Yeah, thank you. I just want to add one more thing. I know I jumped in late, so A few of you talked about taking a gap year, which is helpful for some, since everybody just does things differently. What I wanted to you guys to comment on, and it's worked for you. Do you think taking longer than a year is detrimental, or is it helpful? And is it better to, as you take the gap year, you already have the process in place for doing the MCAT? Like you're not just finishing, whatever training you're doing, and then you figure it out in the next year. I think the process needs to be already in place as you're taking the gap here, so you don't waste time between finishing the previous training, doing your MCAT, applying for medical school. Can you
No,
guys that?
yeah. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And that's why we talked about making sure you're planning ahead. So, like, if you're going to take that gap year and you're in medical school or you want to be in medical school, you need to plan what you're going to do in that gap year. And the medical schools that you're interviewing at are also going to ask you, okay, you took this time off. What did you use this time for? So, during my gap year, so I took 2 gap years. The first one, I got my MPH, and I already knew that during that time I would be taking my MCAT and prepping my application for med school. That way, during the second year, I could actually apply to med school. In terms of number of gap years, it's over 70% of med school students take at least 1 gap year. 43% take 1 to 2. Once you get past that 2, 3, the number of people who are in med school that have taken that long kind of dwindles off. So you don't want to take too long, but that also doesn't mean that it's impossible to get into med school if you took like a 6 year gap year or like a 10-year gap year. And I saw in the chat something about advice you would give to a non-traditional aspiring medical student who already has an established career. I would say find a way to make your career fit into medicine, because the med schools are going to ask you, they're going to be like, you have an established career. Why now? Why medicine? And so make sure you're really taking the skills that you're learning in your career and being able to apply it towards medicine is something that I would say would be very helpful. And also find schools that have a track record for non-traditional applicants. So there are going to be some schools who are willing to accept more non-traditional applicants, more applicants with multiple gap years than other schools. So I think that would be important as well. Anything to add, anybody?
No, I would agree with that. And also, I think just from in a general sense, I would also just say sky's the limit. Like, I would never let having another career deter me from pursuing medicine. Medicine is actually filled with people who have done exactly that. In our class alone, there's somebody who was a physical therapist, there's somebody who was a police officer. People have gone to the army and transitioned out of that just purely into healthcare. So, and even in the broader healthcare field, it's a very, very common thing. And some schools are actually known for that, having older applicants that have had previous careers. So I don't think, if anything, I think it makes you more interesting of an applicant.
Speaking of interesting applications, what stood out? Maybe what would you say would made your application more strong or stand out? If you can share.
I can help answer that question. I don't think there's actually any one thing that makes anyone's application strong. You know, 3 people can do the same activity, and it can look really strong for one person and really weak for the other 2. It's more about what the experience means to you personally and what you draw from it that makes you a strong applicant, right? You can spend 2,000 hours doing research and you can be pipetting away, or you can spend 100 hours and get like a very meaningful poster presentation out of it. The thing that's going to stand out to me more as someone who like looks at med school applications and gone through the process is the person who actually got something tangible out of it and is actually able to grow from the experience rather than, the amount of, tangible hours put in. So I mean, it's a cop-out answer, but truthfully, time and time again, even when I'm interviewing like, residency applicants, the things that make people stand out are the people that you can tell have a passion for why they're doing the things that they're doing, rather than doing them just because they think they have to do them, right? So I mean, that kind of goes back to like, when I was introducing myself, my original thing, where it's just stay true to yourself. Of course, there are, standard hoops that you have to jump through, but no one's path, there's not one clear, path to medical school, right? I could give you I did this, and this, and you could do those exact same things, but because it's not you, it may not work for you. So I would say honestly, just continue to try and stay true to yourself. You know, if it's doing research, do research it doesn't have to be like hard science research. It could be social sciences, it could be psychosciences, it could be engineering research, right? If it's volunteering, it doesn't have to be medical volunteering. It could be volunteering like again, like coaching a local team or volunteering at an orchestra, et cetera, et cetera. But as long as it stays true to you and it points to who you are as a person and why you want to pursue the field of medicine, that itself is going to make you stand out alone more than any experience that you could potentially pursue.
And like with that, like for me, I made sure to apply to like SLU because I had a really big interest in public health and being able to treat a patient not just as the numbers that we see in the chart, but as an actual human. And SLU's value and mission is cure personalis. So like looking at the whole person and seeing how the whole person fits into their health. So when you have a passion and it aligns with a school as well, it can be a really, really good opportunity for you. So making sure to look for programs that speak to you and are true to who you are is going to probably give you the best experience as well. Any last or final questions as we near the top of the hour? Okay.
What would maybe to sum it up, and I want to hear from the three of you, what would be the best advice you would give to that student who is in college, who is maybe the parents who are listening here? What would be a last, maybe the piece of advice that you think it's going to be helpful for them to pursue career in this field?
My biggest thing is comparison is the thief of joy. I think that a lot of times, especially as Africans and as immigrants, we like to be like, oh, this person is doing this and so's kid is doing this, but they're not you. At the end of the day, the only person that you need to make truthfully happy with your journey is you. You need to be proud of what you're doing. You need to be able to explain that to your interviewers and things like that. So do your own path. It doesn't matter if somebody else is a gunner and you're not a gunner. That doesn't mean you can't still go to med school or you can't still be successful in what you want to do. Just focus on you. And I think that will help a lot.
I love that. Emmanuel.
Honestly, that's probably what I was gonna say. I mean, the phrase I like to say is, stay in your own lane, have your blinders on, truthfully, run your own race, right? Things will happen on your own time, not necessarily on the timing that you maybe start out for yourself, maybe not exactly the way that you imagined for yourself, but things will happen if you stay committed and stay true. And again, stay true to yourself at the end of the day. Continue to work hard, and you have a lot of people who are going through the same process that you're going through. So also don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to, admit that you're struggling and that you need assistance with that because there are so many people who are going to be willing to help you along the way. So
Great. Kessa?
Pretty much the exact kind of summation of everything Emmanuel and Mary has said. I would just have said face your front, but we all mean the same thing. It's your journey and at medicine school because it doesn't really have to end unless you want it to. So as long as you keep pushing forward, again, your path might not look like everyone else's, but you'll get there in time and kind of just drawing on those qualities that make you who you are can also serve as strengths. So
Great.
Ready. So if you were looking to be paired with a mentor and you haven't already, I just put the form for being paired with the mentor in the chat. If you could fill out that form, that helps us kind of match you better to your mentor, and let your mentor know exactly where you kind of need help and support. I'm also about to put all of our emails in the chat as well. That way, if you have any specific questions for any of us, feel free to email the person, and they'll get back to you when they have the time to do that. And then the last thing is that if you haven't already, we do have a WhatsApp that you can join. We're going to be posting when our next meetings are, resources for med students or pre-med students and all of that stuff. I don't have the link with me right now, but we'll try and send that out at a later date as well so that you guys can join that. Any final questions before we go? not, thank you guys so much for taking the hour to join us and talk to us about medicine. We really appreciated all of your questions, and we look forward to working with you all in the future.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mary, and thank you, Cass, thank you, Emmanuel. But also thank you everyone who is able to log in. I think this is something that I really, really so proud to see it happen. We all told that you cannot become what you don't see. I was joking to one of the students who was speaking to us on Saturday, and I was telling them every time I go, I have to get a Nigerian who is a doctor. I go to Christian Hospital. When I was going up, I met the guy who went upstairs on the same elevator was a Nigerian, and when I was coming back, was another lady who's a Nigerian doctor. I was telling them it's more of what they have seen people around in the community. They becoming doctors, become engineers, and you also believe that you can become one. And that's what we're doing here. We want people to see people who have been in college, who have been in high school in the US as immigrants going through and now becoming professional in different field. And that is the reason why we want to see why to hear the success of Nigerians, what they're doing, and they can share with other communities also so they can pursue the same career. So thank you so much. Like Mary said, we have a WhatsApp. I think I'll share on the group those who I sent on the text. You can join. We will also share this recording, and hopefully we can be able to join more students next time. Other than that, thank you so much, and wishing you all the best in your exams.
Thank you.